Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our cozy little corner of the internet. I'm Pen and today I'll be reading A Vigilante Kid by SilverRosesAndDragons. I hope you guys enjoy. This is the third installment of the Shadow Sensei the Vigilante Heroics teacher. Just wanted to let you know that I haven't been posting lately because I've been waiting for permission from authors, but anyway, hopefully we can get through that soon. And here is the summary. Eraserhead decides that this vigilante, who couldn't be older than his students, was his. He just had to convince the kid of that. The origin of Eraserhead and Shadow's partnership. Hence, this is a flashback. Hope you guys enjoy, and let's get into this. Eraserhead had, of course, heard of the new vigilante in the area, though he hadn't come across them yet, even though his patrol route covered some of the same places where they had been seen. Other heroes who had seen them had described them as green and said that they were good at sticking to the shadows and staying unnoticed when they wanted to, which may explain why Eraser hadn't come across them yet. It was about a month from when Eraser first heard about the vigilante, who the heroes and police referred to as Greenie or Green Shadow, when he had first met the kid. He was on his regular patrol route when he heard a commotion from down in an unlit alley and a high-pitched scream. He quickly made his way to the alley, ready to stop and attack, but when he got to the roof of one of the buildings next to the alley, there was already a woman running away towards the street and a large man quickly incapacitated by a much smaller person in a dark-coloured hoodie. He wondered for a moment if he should stop the small person or maybe offer assistance, when they pulled out zip ties out of their pocket, out of what appeared to be cargo pants, though it was hard to tell from the angle he was in and the low light. They tied the large man's hands together behind him, and then quickly left the alleyway. Eraserhead moved to the front of the building to watch as they went onto the street. With the street lamps on in the streets, Eraserhead could see the hoodie was a dark green colour and they were wearing dark army green cargo pants as well as a black surgical mask. They looked around quickly before heading straight towards a shaking woman, and Eraserhead quickly noticed that it was the same woman who ran out of the alleyway a few minutes ago. He was about to jump down to interfere, not wanting to risk another person. This person was another bad guy, when they called out, "Ma'am?" They stopped a few feet away from her huddled form. "The man who was trying to hurt you was tied up now. He won't be able to hurt you anymore. But I need you to tell me if you're hurt. Can you do that?" The woman looked up, her eyes wide and watery. I hit my head and my arm." She paused to rub at it. "He grabbed me here." "Okay. Will you let me come closer so I can check your injuries? Then when I call for the police to pick him up, I can let them know you need medical treatment?" Okay. They moved slowly as they approached and crouched in front of her. "Can you show me the area where you hit on your head?" She did, and they inspected the area. "Well, there's no blood, so that's a good sign. Does your head feel fuzzy at all?" "Kinda, but that usually happens when I'm scared." "Well, that's something a medic should probably look at. I'll let the police know when I call, okay?" "Okay. Now, can you tell me your name?" "Naomi." "Okay, Naomi-san, I'm gonna call the police. You stay here, okay?" The woman nodded tearfully and they stepped away, pulling out a flip phone. They were closer to Eraserhead then, so they could still hear as they lowered their voice. "Hi, dispatch? Yes, I'm calling to report an assault and attempted rape. The suspect has been incapacitated. The victim, Naomi-san, has minor bruising and a possible head injury. Yes, we're in Aki Ward, the 34th block in front of Building 7. No, there won't be I won't be here when the cops arrive. Naomi-san will be able to tell you what happened when you get here. The voice sounded younger than what Eraserhead was expecting, considering how professional they were being. The voice went back over to the woman. Naomi-san, the police are on their way, along with a medic to check your head. They should be here in a few minutes. Are you going to be alright until they're here? Are you going to be alright here until they arrive? You're not staying? The woman asked, sounding upset and fearful. I'm going to watch over you until they get here, somewhere where they won't see me. I'm a vigilante, you see, and I don't want them to try to arrest me. If that happens, I have to choose between getting arrested, meaning I won't be able to help people anymore, or risk hurting someone trying to get away. Neither of which sounds like a good option to me. I promise I won't actually leave until they're here, though. Okay? The woman took a deep breath and bowed slightly from her seated position. Okay, thank you. You don't need to thank me, but you're welcome, they said, and then disappeared back into the alley. Eraserhead heard quiet sounds of someone climbing a fire escape while trying to be quiet, and soon a head appeared over the edge of the roof as he was crouching on. He waited until they were fully on the roof, not wanting them to fall, before he said, "That was quite the show you put on there, kid." It turned out that he was right to wait, as the kid startled, jumping a bit and jerking his head to look at him. Now that the kid was closer, Eraser thought that they were male based on the body type. "Oh, hi?" The kid looked at him with wide eyes. Wait, are you Eraserhead? Eraserhead was surprised to be recognized. It didn't happen to him very often. Still, he nodded once. "Yeah, I'm assuming you're the one they called the Green Shadow?" Yeah, it's a silly name, I know, but I didn't pick it," he said with a sheepish shrug. Are you going to try to arrest me?" he said, sad, watching Eraserhead with large eyes that looked to be a little wet. "No, kid, I'm not. I don't see any reason to, as long as you're not being too violent or putting yourself in serious danger," Eraserhead said. "Okay, cool. Well, have a nice night, Eraserhead-san," he said, taking a few steps away. "Kid," Eraser called out, stopping him before he got to the edge of the roof. He pulls out a business card from his utility belt and holds it out. "If you ever need backup or something, call me, okay? Don't get yourself hurt because you're too scared to ask for help." Okay, thanks," the kid said, taking the card before quickly jumping onto the next roof. Eraserhead started to come across the kid more often after that, seeing him on his patrol and occasionally helping him out with a takedown. The kid usually disappeared fairly quickly once the villains and criminal was taken down, though Eraser always tried to get him to stay and talk for a little. About a month and a half after their first encounter, Eraser got fed up with the kid always running away from him. He came across the kid near the end of his patrol one night, and it was one of the few times that neither of them had to worry about a villain when they met. Considering this, Eraserhead made a decision. "Hey, Eraserhead," the kid said. Have a nice rest of your night," he said immediately. He immediately moved to continue on his way, but Eraserhead wasn't going to let that happen that night. "Kid, wait up," he said. The kid paused, turning back to look at him. "Come with me." Pass? I don't feel like getting arrested tonight, but thanks," the kid said before he started running in the other direction. Eraser shot his capture weapon out, catching the kid. "I'm not going to arrest you, kid. I just want to talk. If you're not going to say willingly, I'll make you, but you're free to go after we're done talking." The kid looked skeptical but slumped a little within his restraints. "Fine," he mumbled. Eraserhead nodded and released the boy from the capture weapon, keeping a close eye out to make sure he didn't make a run for it. "Follow me," he said. He led them to a park that seemed abandoned that late at night, or really that early in the morning. "What do you want me to call you, kid? You don't seem to like the name the police and other heroes have given you very much." "Oh, I haven't really thought about it," the kid said. "Maybe just Shadow? You work with people. The people you work with usually just call you Eraser, right? Like a nickname." "Alright, kid, Shadow it is then," Eraserhead said. "Now, show me your gear." "What?" the kid, Shadow, said, blinking at him. "Your gear, kid. First weapons, first aid, whatever. Just show me what you carry when you're on patrol." Why?" the kid asks, hands going in defensively to his hip, not like he was going to pull out a weapon, but still reassuring himself that something was there. "So I can make sure it's sufficient," Eraserhead said. "Look, kid, I'm a teacher. You can't be any older than some of my students. I don't want to see you get hurt I don't want to see you get hurt if I have the opportunity to help you." The kid hesitated for a little more, but eventually slumped his shoulders. "Fine," he said again. He started pulling out things from his pockets, the pocket of his cargo pants, laying them out on a nearby picnic table for Eraserhead's inspection. A moment later, a collection of tools were laid out on the table. Not exactly one that Eraserhead was happy with. There was a utility knife that could be the kind that could be found at any outdoor store, which was probably the best tool the kid had. There was also a multi-tool, a decent amount of bandages, zip ties, a piece of pipe, and a slingshot. Actually, maybe the slingshot was the best. It was a long-distance weapon at least. Eraserhead sighed. "Well, the knife and the slingshot are definitely a good idea, and so are the bandages," he started, not wanting to put down the kid's choice in gear. "That being said, this is nowhere close to being sufficient. I don't have access to tech much. I don't have access to support tech, and it's not like I have a ton of money to buy stuff with anyway," the kid said, sounding defensive. Eraser sighed. "I know, I just don't like the idea of you going out on the streets unprepared. Here's the deal. I can't legally provide you with weapons or anything like that, but I will help you stock up your medical supplies. Don't complain, you might need to give a civilian emergency first aid at one point. And I expect you to do your research onto first aid. I expect you to do research into first aid on your own, understand?" he said, using his teacher voice to get the message across. "Yes, sir," the kid. "Yes, sir," the kid muttered, hanging his head slightly. "Good," Eraserhead nodded. "Now, I'll also be helping you train with your makeshift weapons you already have, so you can get or you can get your hands on, as well as parkour and hand-to-hand." The kid's head snapped up at him. "What? Why?" "Because I don't want you to die, kid. So, you're going to be training with me twice a week around my patrols, until I find that you're less likely to get yourself killed. Understand?" "Yes, sir," the kid said again, seemingly responding to his non-nonsense tone of voice. "Good," Eraserhead said, then dropping into a ready stance. Not that most people would be able to tell with how relaxed he looked. "Now, show me what you got." "What?" the kid started to say before dodging a lazy punch. "What the fuck?" "We're sparring. Try to hit me back while still defending yourself." "What's this?" Shadow said a few weeks later. They had just finished their training session for the day when Eraserhead handed him a bento. "Food. Eat," was all the man said in his explanation. "What? But, why?" "Because you're too small and my husband is a softie." The kid blinked at him for a moment before he slowly said, "Right, your husband. You talk about me at home?" "Of course I do," Eraserhead said. He and Shadow hadn't talked about their families with each other yet, but he didn't feel the need to hide it from the kid. He trusts Shadow enough to feel comfortable sharing some general information about his life outside of work. I always tell my family about my patrols, and you've been around for quite a few of those recently. Right, Shadow said, slowly opening up the bento. He hesitated, then turned away to pull his mask down to eat. Thank you, he said, handing back the empty box not long after. And please thank your husband for me as well. The food was very good. He'll be glad to hear that, Eraserhead smiled tiredly back. Why did you become a vigilante? Eraserhead asked, about 4 months after the two had met. They were sitting side by side on a rooftop, Shadow eating the bento Eraserhead brought for him every night. It was the end of Eraser's patrol, and the two had been in a mild fight together not long before. There was a long silence, and Eraserhead assumed that the kid was going to ignore his question, but eventually the kid said softly, I don't know. I always wanted to help people, to save people. I always wanted to be a hero my whole life, but I finally got it through my head that that's not possible. I guess I didn't really mean to become a vigilante at first. It just started with helping a few people, and then it became a habit, and I couldn't stop. Eraser listened carefully, though he didn't look at the kid. He watched as the city waking up below them, knowing that the kid was trusting him not to look at his face. And why don't you think you can become a hero? You're obviously plenty capable. Because no hero school would admit me. Most wouldn't even let me sit the entrance exam after one look at my paperwork, the kid said, sounding sad. You have a mark on your record? Eraserhead asked, surprised. He didn't actually know who the kid was, sure, but he liked to think he knew Shadow pretty well by that point. He couldn't imagine the kid doing anything bad enough to automatically exclude him from entrance to most hero schools. Something like that. The kid's voice was bitter. Look, don't worry about it. I can't be a hero, but I can do this. I can still help people. Eraser didn't want to drop it, but he knew that by pressing for more, it will only push the kid away. Alright, problem child, if that's what you want. He reached over and ruffled his hand gently over the kid's hood, careful not to dislodge it. The kid sighed and leaned into it a little. The problem child seemed to be more tired than normal. Not in a I didn't sleep well last night way, but in a I haven't slept in days and is stressed way. Eraserhead recognized it because he'd seen it on himself plenty of times. Something wrong, Shadow? He risked asking. You seem a little off today. The kid shook his head. I'm fine, just, well, I'm kinda homeless now. I mean, not really homeless, but my mum keeps me out. So I guess familyless would be more accurate. You can stay with me, Eraserhead said before he could even fully process what the kid had said, and definitely without deciding to. He meant it though. Even as he thought about it. He meant it though, even when he thought about it. He really cared for this kid, and he didn't think Hasashi and Hitoshi would really mind. The kid let out a chuckle in a disbelieving and self-deprecating way. No, thank you though. Why not? Eraser asked before he could stop himself. The kid stares at him like he lost his mind for a moment. I don't even want you to see my face, Eraser. You know nothing about my real identity, my history, my quirk. Trust me, it wouldn't work out. Besides, you have a family. A family that could include you, he wanted to say, but he didn't. Instead, he sighed. If you ever change your mind or need anything, you have my number. Thanks, Eraserhead, the kid said. I'll keep that in mind. The first time Eraserhead saw the kid's face was not ideal. He almost would have rather not seen it at all, considering the circumstances. The kid got over his in over his head in a fight with multiple villains, and by the time Eraserhead had arrived, the kid was already hurt. More than anything, he was glad to have been close enough to hear the commotion, even though it meant that he had to see his kid get slammed into a wall and not get back up. He took care of the two hulking villains still standing, and he bound the one the kid had managed to take down before he got there. Glad that none of them had mutation quirks, he called Tsukauchi for a pickup before rushing to where Shadow was slumped against the wall, unconscious. "Problem child?" he said gruffly, shaking his shoulder. "Can you wake up for me?" When he got no response, he sighed and started checking for injuries. There was blood on the back of the kid's head, but not enough to really worry about it. Wanting to make sure that he didn't miss any injuries, he carefully took off the kid's jacket. Luckily, all he saw on the kid's arms were some regular bruises, and when he pushed the t-shirt underneath up to check his ribs, it didn't seem like anything was broken. He took the kid's mask off to check his face for injuries, and he got his first good look at it. Shadow's cheeks and nose were heavily freckled, and his face was tanned, implying that he spent a decent amount of time outside in the day as well as the night. Luckily, he didn't have a broken nose, though his face was a little puffy and starting to bruise, showing that he had taken a hit there during the fight. Eraser was just glad he didn't get hurt worse. "Eraser," he heard a voice call out not long after he finished checking over the kid. He put the kid's mask back on and looked up to see the police had arrived, sirens off since it was an emergency, seeing that the criminals had already been detained. "Tsukauchi," he said in response, standing and stepping towards the detective. "Who's that, one of the criminals?" the man asked, stepping closer. "Oh, you're Vigilante." Eraser had wanted to protest to the idea of the kid being his Vigilante, but he didn't get the chance. "Is he okay?" Eraserhead sighed. "I'm not sure. Nothing seems to be broken, but he hasn't regained consciousness since he's been thrown against the wall." "Well, I called for medical just in case anyone needed it, so you can have them check him out," the detective said with a shrug. "That's one way to get him to lose all the trust I managed to gain from him." Eraserhead paused, regarding Tsukauchi. You aren't gonna try to arrest him, aren't you? Are you? Officially, I have to give him the opportunity. Unofficially, I'd rather him stay free. He's good at this, and vigilante reform programs can be really difficult to get into. Besides, he's helping us out," the detective said, lowering his voice for the last part. You can instruct the paramedics to leave his mask on and say you've already checked him for injuries there yourself. No one needs to see his face, unofficially, of course. Just don't tell anyone who he is." "Of course, he is a student that was helping me on patrol," Eraserhead said. "It wasn't even technically a lie. Shadow was his student, even if the boy didn't go to UA." Tsukauchi sighed and nodded, walking over to help collect the criminals. "Stop by the station to give you a report within the next 24 hours, Eraser," he called out over his shoulder, Eraserhead not bothering to respond, all his focus on the kid in front of him. When the medical team arrived, they gave the kid the all clear, thank goodness. The kid freaked out when he woke up in a stretcher, though. He looked around in panic before his eyes locked onto Eraser's, and after a moment he glared. "Why am I in an ambulance?" Shadow asked, and Eraser could hear the fear hidden underneath the defensive anger. "Because you were thrown into a wall and didn't regain consciousness. Don't worry, kid. None of the paramedics saw your face. Your mask is still on," the man explained. Shadow narrowed his eyes at the pro. "But someone did. Otherwise you wouldn't be reassuring me that no one saw my face." Damn, this kid was too smart and observant for his own good. Yeah, kiddo. I checked there for injuries before anyone else got there, Eraserhead admitted. You don't have to worry, though. I know you have no... You know I have no interest in arresting you. I don't want you to know who I am, Eraserhead, the kid said sharply, and the hero was a bit surprised to hear him use that tone of voice on his hero name. The kid wrapped his arms around himself, and Eraserhead quickly realized that he was trying to hide how vulnerable he was feeling. I don't know who you are, kiddo, he said calmly. I would recognize you if I saw you unmasked again, sure, but I can't exactly figure out your identity just from your face without a lot of hard work that I have no reason to put in. I'm sorry I saw your face, when you weren't ready, but this doesn't change anything, Shadow. Shadow studied him for a long moment, seeming to assess his truthfulness. You saw how young I am, though. You saw how younger I am, though. How young I look, at least. The kid said, the last part added on in a hurry, as if remembering not to give away more than he had to. We already knew you're young. We've known that you're young since the beginning, kid. And sure, you're a bit younger than I assumed, but that doesn't really change anything, Eraserhead assured. I still don't want to arrest you, and I'm still going to teach you and be there for you. I just want you to be safe. I promise. The kid took a deep breath, visibly settling himself before he said, Okay, am I good to go then? Not quite. You still haven't had your bento yet, Eraser said with a smirk, pulling it out and handing it over to the boy, whose eyes lit up at the mention of the cold food. Thanks, he mumbled. You can't be old enough to be on your own for this long, Eraserhead said one day when the kid had been on his own for a month and a half. The kid snorted and shook his head. Don't worry about it, I'm fine. Are you even old enough to be in high school yet? I know the foster system is fucked up, but it can't be worse than living on the streets. The kid scoffed in response. The streets are safer, trust me. Kids like me don't survive in the foster system. Eraser frowned. I know it's bad, but kids don't actually disappear from the system that often. And you wouldn't be put in a place where you're in real danger. Existing in this world puts me in danger, Eraser said. Japan would rather I disappear. I could be attacked in broad daylight in front of dozens of witnesses, and the police wouldn't even investigate. No daylight pro hero would save me if I got caught up in a villain attack once they realize who I am. That's just the way this world works. Kid, what? Kid, why would you think that? Eraser asked, taken aback by the cautious way the kid said that. The kid looked away from Eraser to see his shoulders, and Eraser could see his shoulders tensing as if posed to run or block a blow. I'm quirkless. Eraser didn't know how to respond to that. He froze for a solid minute. When he finally snapped out of it, all he could think to say was, Kiddo, don't, the kid said, the voice sounding choked. I'll go. It was nice knowing you, Eraser. He only got 2 steps away before Eraserhead drew himself together enough to respond. Shadow, he said, even though he couldn't make it better. Everything the kid said was true for quirkless people, and after all, so he didn't try. Where do you think you're going? We still have training to do. It was the kid's turn to freeze then. Slowly he turned to face the underground hero. You still want to train me, even though I'm a Deku? Eraser crossed his arms. I do not allow that kind of language from my students. Humans lived and fought for without quirks for thousands of years before the dawn of quirks. Besides that, I fight mostly quirkless. I have the advantage over that most of my opponents can't use their quirks when they fight me, but against mutant quirks, I'm functionally quirkless. If I can fight like that, so can you. Besides, you've already proven your ability to me that in the time that we've known each other. Your quirk status doesn't change anything. Eraser could see Shadow's eyes crinkle with the smile over his mask. Okay. Thank you all so much for going through that story with me. I hope you guys liked it. That was part 3 of Shadow Sensei, the Vigilante Heroics teacher. The title was called, A Vigilante Kid by Silver Roses and Dragons. I'll have the link to the book in the description below, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks so much for the support. Bye bye.